a sinner, left my lover crying on the dance floor. I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner.
Hello guys and welcome back to more Slow Damage. Let's continue. The next day, Taku shook me awake and dragged me out to help with the volunteer soup kitchen event. But even then, we still couldn't compete with the dozens upon dozens of people who had come avail themselves of charity. Some of the volunteers looked like gangsters or host club workers. Some had shown up out of sheer boredom, some were genuinely trying to do some good, while others were just trying to improve their public images. Then Ray turned up and the soup kitchen began. We ladled pork and veggie soup from a big pot into little styrofoam containers and handed them to each person in line.
あら、村瀬先生、こんにちは。
どうも、こんにちは。
相変わらず素敵ね。
いえ、とんでもないです。
As the locals passed through the lines, they all said hello to Taku.
村瀬先生、この間はありがとう。
池山さん、その後、お孫さんの様子はいかがですか？
薬を飲んで寝たらすっかり良くなったみたいでな。先生のおかげだよ。
それはよかった。
The locals all deeply appreciated Taku's caring nature. They struck up conversations with him one after another.
あら、レイちゃんも手伝ってくれてるのね。
あ、はーい、お手伝いに来ました。
イケメンだから目の保養になるわね。
やだ、そこは美人って言ってくれないと。
Smiling Ray raised a limp wrist, and the women all giggled in delight. Like Taku, he had an affable personality that was popular with the locals.
と、お前も来てたのか。
A familiar voice called out to me as I lazily helped with the soup distribution, and I looked up. There stood Kotaru, Mayu, and Aiji.
とは、豚汁姿が様になってるね。豚汁姿って何ですか？知らないよ。
お前らも来るんだな、こういうイベント。
そりゃ上からの命令だし、しょうがないよね。榊さん、意外とこういうの好きですからね、顔に似合わず。
榊さんの命令じゃ断れねえだろ。ってことで、飼い主待たせてるから行くわ。
Rolling his eyes, Kotaru stalked off, scratching his head.
ほいじゃ、とは。失礼します。
Aiji bowed politely, then hurried after Kotaru and Mayu.
最近高里組もこういうボランティアのイベントによく来るようになったわね。やっぱりイメージアップを狙ってるのかしら。
Whoops. Ray gazed after the three stooges as he stirred the soup pot.
榊が次期組長の座でも狙ってるんじゃないのか。
To me, it was a pretty casual topic, but Ray frowned awkwardly. He probably felt bad that my father died or something.
榊さん、次の組長でほぼ確定らしいわよ。でも組長の座を狙ってるって言われてる人も、あのメガネの透かしてる方。あっちは来てないのかしら。
どうだろうな。俺は見てない。
Ray was referring to Tono Masami, the chief administrator for the Takasato Gumi. Sakai and Tono were diametrically opposed in every way, and as you might expect, they got along like oil and water. I looked in the direction Kotaru had gone and saw a group of thuggish youths and guys in suits, all of them. Takasato Yakuza, probably.
やっぱりライバル同士になるわけだから顔を合わせたくないのかしらね。他に次期組長候補っていないの？
俺に聞かれてもな。
I gazed out at the group of gangsters. The nearby civilians were all giving them a wide berth. The smoke that rose from the group was a swirl of muddy colors, but you didn't need to have special powers to know to avoid them. Then I heard Taku calling for me and turned my attention back to the task at hand. Once a long line of people finally dwindled, I was mercifully cut loose. It was just past 2 p.m. I stood in the shade of a tree, a short distance from the event space, taking a smoke break. As I stared around absently, I caught sight of a familiar man. He was wearing a gray suit and talking to the guy in charge of the charity event, Sakaki. He seemed to sense my gaze as he looked over his shoulder. Ooh, at me. That was a weird little hiccup. At me, then came walking over straight away.
おう、とはじゃねえか。
Sakaki was the Takasato Gumi's second in command. Given his position, the younger guys all feared him, but he was always pretty nice to me. His smoke was a vibrant green color.
お前はあれか。村瀬さんのお付き合いか。
ああ、さっき小太郎たちと会った。
ああ、そうか。
He slid both hands into the pockets of his slacks and looked around.
まあ、たまにはこういうのもきちんと見に来ねえとな。カジノだ、セレブだってそんなことばかりやってたら、足元がふらついちまうからよ。今日俺たちも後ろぐらい商売だけじゃやってけねえんだ。これからは企業としての体裁も整えていかねえとってやつだ。
Well, here's a soup ladle. Shut the fuck up and help me.
へえ。
He shrugged off my absent response and grinned.
なんか困ったことがあったらいつでも来いよ。最大限のバックアップをしてやるからよ。映画ってのはそう長くは続かねえもんだ。いつ何時戦争が起こるかわからねえからな。なんかあったらそん時やってやってこい。
ああ。
それとお前。
If you're about to threaten me, don't. He leaned in to whisper in my ear.
親父の葬儀来なかったな。
You're all going to keep this up, aren't you?
行くわけない。
だよな。お前はそう言って分かっちゃいるんだが。
There was a suggestive pause as he rubbed his neck.
まあいい。じゃあな。
He's not gonna lecture us? Okay. He promptly cut the conversation short and walked off with a wave.
あ、とはいた。
Right as he left, Ray ran up behind me.
何？榊さんと話してたの？
別に挨拶だけ。
そう。
Squinting dubiously, he watched Sakaki disappear into the distance.
あの人もよくわかんない人よね。妙に人情派っていうか、とわをすっごく構うし、息子の面倒を見る父親って感じ。
Is he our actual dad?
ガキの頃からの付き合いだし。
Well, I know.
まあ、それもそうか。そういえば、もう一人のメガネの透かした方は、やっぱり来てないみたい。
でかいのが揃いも揃って邪魔だよ。
Out of nowhere, a mountain of styrofoam containers appeared, interrupting us.
何かと思ったら、おばあちゃん。
Beneath the mountain of styrofoam was the old lady who ran Tajima's. As she held her container, she glared up at us sharply. But as soon as she laid eyes on Ray, her expression softened slightly.
なんだよあんた。いたのかい？
いたわよ。みんなのお手伝いに来たの。
まあ、人手は大いに越したことはないからね。
This man has powers over old ladies, even grumpy ones.
でしょ？おばあちゃんたちの何倍も働けるからどんどん言ってちょうだい。
I like him.
ああ、助かるよ。
Ray had a massive sweet tooth, so he was always buying things at Tajima's. Because of that, the old lady seemed to have taken a liking to him.
おばあちゃん、それ大丈夫？持とうか？
Is there a flash?
いや、これぐらいどうってことないよ。他お手伝いが。
Oh, I just noticed, I think.
わかったわ。でも気をつけてね。
Oh, it actually shows their color on the side by their portrait. That's neat.
ああ、
As she slowly tottered off, Ray waved goodbye and then turned back to me.
イベントは16時までだからもうすぐ終わりよ。そろそろタクのところへ戻りましょう。
Together we started walking. Before long, we found Taku slumped on a bench, his hands folded on his stomach, looking up at the sky.
ああ、
When he spotted us, he forced himself upright. Fatigue etched deeply into the lines of his face.
お疲れ様。忙しすぎてあっという間に時間経っちゃったわね。
本当にな。お前たち何か食べたか？残り物ならまだあるみたいだが。
私はさっきもらって少し食べたわ。トアは？
いや、
I pulled a pack of cigarettes from the back pocket of my jeans.
まさかあんたのご飯それ？もう。
Don't knock it till you try it. Ray shot me a pointed look as I lit one up.
とは、
I looked over in response to my name. Then Taku jerked his head to point at something. I looked in the direction it was indicated and saw Sakaki standing with Kataru, Mayu, and Eiji.
さっきあいつらと話してただろう。
ああ、話しかけられたから。
昔からの顔見知りだから付き合いやすいんだろうが、あまり深く関わるなよ。
そうね。いつトラブルに巻き込まれるかわかんないし。
Ray nodded, frowning. I looked away and didn't say anything. I wasn't trying to get in with any of them. They wanted to talk to me, so I responded, that's all. I was pretty sure Taku understood that, but because he was so paranoid about the Takasato Gumi, he kept nagging me over and over. Ironic considering how many gangsters he treated at his own clinic.
あ、ねえ、今日はルーストに来るの？
多分。
そう。店長が珍しいお酒を仕入れたから、トワに飲んでみてほしいって言ってたわよ。あまり万人受けしない味らしいんだけど、あんたならいけるんじゃないかって。
へえ。
I was generally willing to drink just about anything alcoholic, so if he wanted me to try something, I was down for it.
今晩お待ちしております。
Ray pressed one hand to his chest and bowed like a humble butler.
あまり飲みすぎるなよ。
You can't tell me what... Okay, you can tell me what to do, but I'm not gonna listen.
私が見張るから任せて。
You can't snitch on me. Daddy's gonna snitch on... Ah, fuck. Ignoring their banter, I looked out at the setting sun, exhaled a lungful of cigarette smoke. God, the music reminds me so much of Persona. It's driving me nuts, and I think I'll probably say this every episode, so forgive me. I know I've said it in every episode so far. Late that night, after the soup kitchen, the three of us stopped by the local diner. After that, I headed downtown. As I wandered around looking for a place to have a drink, I heard sounds of an argument in the distance. There was a crowd of people standing in the middle of the street.
次はないと思えよ。
Through the sea of people, I could see a man in a suit scoffing down at the ground. It was Tono. He was glaring down at a frightened man who had fallen to the asphalt. He and his cronies cut through the crowd. As he walked, he spotted me standing there, and disgruntledly scowl shifted to surprise. His reddish-brown smoke fluttered in the breeze. Oh, you're a dick.
とは
Oh. You look like a guy from the Yakuza games that I usually end up beating the crap out of. He and his cronies walked over and came to a stop right in front of me.
こんなところで会うなんて珍しいな。飲み屋探しか？
None of the ones you run.
ああ、
そうか。
He sounded completely uninterested. Then he started cracking his neck.
今の見てたのか？
少し。
近頃は借りた恩を踏み倒そうとする奴が多くてな。困ったもんだ。
He let out an exacerbated sigh, then donned a condescending smirk.
ところで、昨日は炊き出しのボランティアとやらにお前も行ったのか？
ああ、強制連行で。
村瀬か。純粋にボランティアとして参加するのは大いに結構なことだ。だが、昨日はうちの連中も来てたんだろう？俺たちがそんなイベントにわざわざ参加するなんてあざといと思わないか？
It was a loaded statement aimed squarely at Sakaki's head. As for me, I just shrugged. Tono's lips curled in contempt.
親父が言って組もしばらくはゴタゴタするだろうが、もし何か困ったことがあれば言えよ。助けてやる。
ああ。
It was obvious he didn't mean a word of it, and he clearly had no intention of pretending otherwise. If anything, maybe he was just mocking Sakaki's general disposition.
じゃあな。
With that, he and his goons headed off downtown. Likewise, I started walking without a moment's hesitation. Right as I stepped into an empty alley to avoid the crowds, however, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I pulled it out and checked the screen. Let's see. Shin Nakomi Times from A to Z. Did the big boss die of illness? Rumors say he was sick. Takasato downtown has led to infighting, sources say. On the 9th, Takasata Gumi leader. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's. Do I do anything? Okay, there you go. It was a newsletter titled Shinkumi Times from A to Z. Eiji sent them out to his mailing list periodically. I never asked for this subscription, but apparently anyone who traded contact info with him got added to it. His stance was, if you don't like it, unsubscribe. The newsletter mostly featured local news updates with a light sprinkling of unsubstantiated rumors, informal polls, and other random crap. It was completely useless to me, but since he only sent them every now and then, I couldn't be bothered to unsub. So here I was. I closed my inbox and opened a new browser tab. From my bookmarks, I selected Roost's blog, The Fourth Face. I like to check in every now and then whenever I felt like it. Sometimes there was really good submissions, so it was a decent way to kill some time. I hadn't checked it in a while, so there were a fair few articles I missed. Apparently, they finally caught the artist who was exclusively using oil paint made from human remains. I was following that case for a while. They'd found evidence that he was murdering people to make paint. Honestly, if he managed to make the Shinkumi police force get off their asses, then he must have been pretty shitty criminal. Alas, now he would never paint again. Next, an article discussing an acrylic painter and how their style changed over time. While they started out painting intricate lines and pale colors, they suddenly switched to gloomy pieces painted predominantly with black. Comparing the two styles side by side, I could immediately tell it was a side effect of drug use. I'd used these stark style shifts dozens of times in the past, and it wasn't that uncommon. I skimmed the other articles for a while, then came to a stop at one particular artist. Their alias phrase. It was a photograph of a wound. Specifically a blood cut somewhere on the body. I could tell the image had been retouched, but to me it looked like an ordinary self-harm cut. And yet something was off about it. I didn't know what it was. Was this a wrist or a leg? Phrase. For a while, I scrutinized the image, trying to work it out. Then I closed the tab. Since it was posted on Roost's blog, the manager there would probably have more information about it. With that thought, I headed to Roost. At first glance, you wouldn't realize Roost was a bar at all. There was no sign out front, so for the most part, it just looked like a tall, spindly concrete building. As I stepped inside, the ethereal music and lighting greeted me like always. The bar was pretty packed, or at least I was having trouble seeing any empty seats. But this wasn't some sports bar for normies. The people who gathered here were of a particular inclination that naturally resulted in tight crowds. Ray walked around waiting tables. Meanwhile, the manager quietly worked the counter. He had an unusual hairstyle and always wore a perfectly fitted black shirt. Late 40s, if I had to guess. As he crafted cocktails and washed dishes, he gazed around the bar. I had never seen him get emotional or speak a single word more than is strictly necessary. Likewise, his smoke was a calm yellow color, like a daffodil. The bar was furnished with all sorts of unusual decorations and paintings. Shields and tapestries with a magical motif, porcelain dolls with cracks all over them, accessories featuring eyeballs and holy crosses. I couldn't help but wonder where he bought this shit. Altogether, it engendered a vibe that attracted those with eccentric tastes. Everyone was welcome here. That was the manager's attitude, and so it became the dominant culture of Roost. Granted, the barrier to entry was still pretty high for the average normie, but for the fringe minority, it was home.
いらっしゃい。
As I walked up to the counter and sat down on the empty stool, the manager looked up from the glass he was wiping.
トワ君、待ってたよ。実はちょっと頼みがあって。
レイから聞いた。珍しい酒があるって。
そうそう。ちょっと待ってね。
He turned to the shelf behind him, grabbed a bottle, and held it out for me to see.
これね、アブさんっていうよもぎのお酒で、いろんなメーカーから出てるんだけど、こっちじゃあまり出回ってないやつをフランスから取り寄せたんだよ。でも、この味は苦手な人も多いだろうから、勧めづらくて。トワ君ならいけるんじゃないかと思ったんだ。ちょっと飲んでみてよ。
He poured a small amount of the green liquid into the glass. Then he set a perforated spoon on top of the glass and placed a sugar cube on top of it. As I watched curiously, he grabbed a jug of water and slowly poured it over the sugar cube into the glass. Apparently, he was trying to melt the sugar.
そうやって飲むのが普通なのか。
伝統的な飲み方らしいよ。だけど、なかなか手がかかるんだよね。
By the time the cube was nearly melted, the translucent green liquid had gone pale and cloudy. He stirred the glass with the perforated spoon and slid it over to me.
はい、どうぞ。
I picked it up and took a small sip. The cold liquid slid down my throat, leaving a bitterness in my mouth, and not unlike herbal medicine. It tasted like someone put their lawn clippings in a juicer. It was bizarre and potent.
どう？
砂糖なしでもいいんじゃないか。
He nodded, smiling.
トワ君ならそう言うと思ってたよ。その苦味と味の強さが苦手で砂糖を入れる人が多いらしいんだけどね。
度数は？
60。
That would explain why it burnt my throat. I could understand the lack of broad appeal.
あ、トワ来てたんだ。
As I was taking my second sip, I heard a familiar voice.
はあ、昼間に運動したから疲れちゃった。
Ray strolled across the bar and sat next to me. Though he was technically on the clock, he was allowed to sit and chat as long as it wasn't too busy.
昼って炊き出しのボランティア？
そう、タクが出るって言うから、私とトワも一緒にね。トワは私以上に疲れたんじゃない？いつもだらけてるから。
まあな。
I shrugged off his teasing. He made a show of pouting.
何よ、つまんないの。あ、それマスターが言ってたお酒？どうだった？
飲むか？
Gingerly, he took a glass like an anxious puppy, and he leaned in to sniff it.
やった！何この匂い！トワこれ飲んだの？飲めるの？
ま、普通に。
うーわー。あたしこれは匂いだけでダメ。
His unabashed disgust got a chuckle out of the manager.
これって薬草が原料のお酒なのよね。
そうだね。
植物か。
レイ君って植物嫌いだったっけ？
うん、花は大好きよ。でも植物って見てる分にはいいんだけど、腐ってくるとすごい匂いになるじゃない。だから自分じゃ買ったり育てたりする気にならないのよね。
なるほどね。腐臭っていうのはどの生き物も大体似たような匂いを発するんだよ。鼻に残る嫌な甘ったるさがあるっていうか、人間も植物も動物も。
The subject matter contrasted sharply with his bright smile.
店長って普段は温厚だから忘れがちだけど、やっぱりこのお店の店長よね。
ん？
As they talked, an image rose to the forefront of my mind. The wound photo from Roost's blog. Flowing blood, exposed flesh, the sweet smell of decay wouldn't be too out of place.
店長、聞きたいことがあるんだけど。
どうぞ。
ブログに載ってた傷の画像。あれ、知り合い？
ああ、あの画像。なかなか良かったでしょ？
何傷の画像って。私その記事まだ見てない。
レイ君、その前にお客さん、会計お願いします。
あ、はい。
Ray rose from his seat and walked over to the register.
話の続きだけど、あの画像ね。僕の知り合いじゃなくて、初めて投稿された作品なの。それで、僕も気に入ったから、作者のフレーズにメールしてみたんだけど、一応作品の投稿時には、メールアドレスの記入を必須にしてるんだけど、ステアドだったみたいでね。
ブログには載せてほしいけど、素性は知られたくないってことか。
多分そうだろうね。連絡が取れたら店に作品を展示させてもらおうと思ってたんだけど、ちょっと残念だよね。まあまた投稿があるかもしれないし、僕も誰か作者を知らないか周りに聞いてみるつもり。何か分かったらトワ君にも教えるね。興味あるでしょ。
まあな。
だと思った。
Roost drew not in just those with eclectic interests, but equally electic artists who sought to cultivate a following. As a result, people often came here to get or give out contact info.
お会計終わったわ。さっきの話の続き教えて。
Ray rushed back, eagerly leaned both arms on the counter.
店のブログ見てみろよ。
あ、そっか。まずはそこからよね。オッケー。
He pulled his cell phone from the pocket of his waist apron.
ああ、この画像ね。 ていうかとはこれが気になったの？
そう見えるけど、違う。
違うの？手首か何かを切った後の画像にしか見えないけど。もし本当に違うなら、どうやって作ってるのかしら。
今トワ君にも話したんだけど、メールアドレスが捨て跡だったから連絡が取れなくてね。フレーズっていう名前しかわからない謎の作者なんだよ。
なにそれ、ミステリアスじゃない。ちょっとワクワクするわね。
Ray shot me a meaningful grin.
こういう人がモデルになるといいわね。せっかくあんたが興味持ったんだし、ぴったりじゃない。
そううまくはいかないだろ。
I downed the rest of the bittersweet absinthe. Wormwood.
そうだ、レイ君。この間店でやったボディアートの相談イベント、お客さんから好評でね。
え、本当に？
ああ。それでね、定期的に開催してみようかと思うんだけど、レイ君さえ良ければどう？
やるわ。あのイベント、いろんな人の話が聞けてすっごく勉強になったの。そこからお客さんになってくれる人もいたし、またやりたいなって思ってたのよ。
Body art, also known as body modification, was one of Ray's other hobbies. Considering it was a hobby, he's researched it pretty thoroughly, and he could perform all kinds of services, from tattoo to implants. His work was highly acclaimed, and apparently Roost Recent's body art consultation event was a huge hit too. A few decades ago, body art was frowned upon in this country, but in recent years it became accepted for people to augment their bodies. Obviously, tattoos were common, but these days LEDs and IC chips were becoming mainstream too. Some of the customers here had glowing fingernails or horns growing out of their foreheads. For a lot of people, it was a fashion statement.
それじゃあ、またイベントの打ち合わせしようか。
よろしくお願いします。
Tray and dishcloth in hand, Ray cheerfully walked off. Aw, he's a happy puppy. We keep doing games with puppies. First we got Richard. Oh, we got Richard in Bacchanalia, and we've got Ray. I stumbled down the street early the next morning after drinking at Roost all night. It is storming outside. Ray was worried about letting me leave, but I assured him I was used to it. Just in case I might save. This kind of thing happened all the time. It wasn't rare for me to end up down here on the concrete either. I thought I was walking straight, but everything was spinning, and the next thing I knew, I was on my side. I felt a dull ache spread through my body, but it didn't really bother me, probably because I was so drunk. Now that I'm lying down, however, fatigue quickly set in. I didn't want to get up again. My eyelids drooped, and I felt like gravity was pulling me down hard against the ground. I guess this is happening. With that thought, I closed my eyes. And because I was so wasted, it didn't take long for me to pass out. This is going to end up with a kidney missing. Oh, boy. You guys probably can really hear it. So that's actually where we're going to leave it. Not because I want to, but because we are having a little bit of a storm here, if you guys can hear the thunder, and I don't want to risk losing the recording. So thank you guys so much for watching this. I know this kind of thing is kind of unique. Usually I do, Yuri games and, you know, more guy-centric games. But, you know, Atomi games and yaoi games. I am going to end this right now because my power just went out for a second. Thank you guys for joining me. Bye, everybody.